streams are live. Looks like we're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, not sure, we'll see. So welcome everybody. The webinar today will take probably 20-30 minutes, not too long. And as it says in the name, how to have a happy SaMD project. And this really is a theme which I've developed based on my consulting projects, based on my experience where I haven't been happy, and based on speaking to teams and seeing teams, and really a level of suffering of development teams for various reasons. And I think here the opportunity is that we can both reduce the suffering of our development teams and also improve device performance. So just like in engineering, you want to remove friction, stress, anything that's going to take energy out of the system. I think I've observed there's a lot of energy going to very wasteful activities, which can be removed. And so that's, and if we remove those wasteful activities, we can hopefully put that energy into making better devices. So here we go. So this is not about me, but this year I've gone through what I would call a large personal transformation. I got to the end of last year and had a contract, like it paid well. The clients were nice, but, I was burnt out at the end. I think I put on like nearly 10 kilos in 6 months, spent, 12, 13 hours a week driving back and forth between Germany, stretched, I wasn't happy, the customer wasn't really happy, and it kind of all went down in a pile of flames. There were technical reasons for that, but on reflection, I wasn't overly happy with how I turned up to the client. And on the other side, I was just tired. I didn't want to live that way anymore. So I've gone through a bit of a personal journey. So on the left, this has been my typical face during life. Bit of a dead stare. I think I inherited it from my father. And on the right, that's a photo taken on the weekend by a stranger, actually, where, well, hopefully I look happy and not terrifying. But yeah, I've shown it to friends and family, and they say, yeah, okay, wow, what's happened to you, Richard? You've changed. So I think, I think there's a way that we can introduce a level of happiness and well-being in our teams, which is, should be a good enough reason to do it, but also we can, put that energy into making better devices. So what is healthcare experience? This is the advertisement. We have a doctor, a nurse, a patient sitting around a bed. Everybody's looking very happy, very clean, sterile, muted environment. So, our healthcare system works well. But in reality, it's a little bit different, right? So we may have very professional looking environments, but generally, it's a very stressful experience for the patient. Financial stress, the discomfort of treatment, wondering what's going to happen, wondering, what's happening to their future, their health. There are some interesting smells and textures, and it's a bit of cold environment in the hospitals. Worried about loved ones. Worried about what treatment options are available to them, and they're obviously at an information disadvantage. You get the messages from the professionals, could be a terminal diagnosis, you're going to die in X years, X months. They put a finite timeline on your life, tell you're going to be dependent on drugs and devices and other things. What's your money? Give us your insurance number. How are you going to pay? Doctors and nurses are often overworked. They don't have the time that they may want to spend with the client. So it's a bit of, hey, look, I'm the professional, just trust me. And, we may say you've got a choice, but, do you really? And if you're given the choice as a patient, do you have the skills and the ability to be able to, the knowledge to be able to, make that choice? So ultimately, when you enter into healthcare, in a lot of situations, it's highly stressful. And, here's a question, philosophical question, but a question nonetheless. When we design our devices, we design them for clinical effectiveness to deliver the intended use within an acceptable risk profile in compliance to the law. But what if we added an additional use requirement in terms of the emotional experience our devices give to our patients and our users. So here's a very simple example, like a Band-Aid with a smiley face on it. It's a very small thing. Does that bring at least a little bit of joy in an otherwise blue-white professional environment? That if it wasn't there, that little emotional, good emotional feeling may not appear. Okay. And does that, positive emotion actually help the patient to heal? Because we do have evidence that when patients are relaxed, they're not stressed. So all of those hormones and all those things our bodies produce from stress, which damage us long term and potentially in the short term are absent, our body can heal. And when you look at our devices don't heal us, don't heal our patients, but they greatly assist the healing, the body, to do the healing. So we want great devices, and we want the body in optimal state to be able to heal itself, right, with the support from our devices. So I think there's a question: what if we considered the user experience in terms of the emotional effect and the biological impact that had on the body to improve their body's receptiveness to healing? And ultimately, would that actually improve the effectiveness of our devices? Don't know. Let's explore. And from my point of view, we on the right hand side, we need better devices. I think that's clear. There's a lot of innovation there, and even the existing devices, can we do better? Maybe not. Depends on the device. In my view, I think we've got all the regulations, the process, and the tools and techniques we need. For me, the technical issue on how to run an effective design and development process is solved. But the blocker to implementing that to deliver better devices is team performance. In my consulting work, I've seen so many teams which are very stressed and very problematic, under-resourced, whether real or perceived. And my experience, I can look back at my consulting experience and say, look, I could have done better. So, I think the blocker at the moment is not the tools, not the techniques, not the regulations. It's really the internal organization of our development teams. And with that, we can deliver better devices. So if we take a look at the advertised development team experience, and again, this is just a snapshot from the internet. So we've got these young millennials on a Zoom call, all looking very engaged and happy and doing professional things, which is great. That's the image that the agile culture, the development culture, we all want to show to the world. But, in reality, behind that, there's a lot of things going on with people which they don't necessarily share. And, maybe for all my failings as a consultant, one thing I think I do reasonably well is speak to people and kind of find out what's going on in the project. And, I can't solve all those problems, but, I get a good feeling for what's happening on the ground. And, you can read them, you can add them, and obviously there's positive people in teams. Well, this is, slide is to make a point. But, there is a lot of things which go wrong in teams. There's a lot of opportunity to improve in teams. But, often there is not the culture in place or the processes in place to be able to put that feedback, cycle it back into the process to create sustainable improvements. And, the question I have is, are our teams suffering? And look, I've seen burnouts, even to the point of suicides, not necessarily in the medical device world, but unfortunately I've had colleagues who have committed suicide. And, when people do that, there's more than just work involved, but work can be a stressor for, making that ultimate choice. People burning out, I've suffered the sleepless nights, the chronic stress, I would call it trauma, when stress extends over periods of time, it does become traumatic, chronic post-traumatic stress disorder, these sort of things. Weight gain, I've seen it in people, even the most lovely people with the best attitude, etc., right? They're compensating somehow. And if our stress levels, hearts are low, our stress levels high, it has to come out somewhere. When I was younger, I used to very aggressively exercise, which I guess is semi-positive, but the cause of the exercise not there. But I've also been in eating cycles as well, and I've seen that in other people, etc. I think you get the idea. If you've been around teams long enough, or just people, you see these symptoms. And then the result on our devices, what's happening to our devices we're there to build. And I've seen examples not fully tested. Usability is not great or could be better. Some things like just the hardware clicking together, you click it together and it sort of shakes and rattles, right? And everybody knows, but nobody fixes it. Gaps in risk management, the documentation maybe just hits the minimum level, limited end user involvement in the design, our doctors, our patients, etc. All these sort of things. And I think there's money on the table through team performance to improve our devices, maybe get an advantage in the marketplace, maybe reduce financial risk, reputation risk, regulatory risk, all these sort of things. And ultimately, if we can get above, minimizing the downside, can we produce a feeling of delight in our users, whether it's a doctor or patient, and give them a better experience, and not an experience of, our typical 62366 experience, but an emotional experience of the device, right? Don't know. So here's a question then. If you believe that any of this could be possible, can unhappy teams produce devices that create joy in users? It's kind of a Zen concept that, only happiness can produce happiness. And if we have, I believe unhappy teams can produce effective devices, because I think there's a lot of examples out there. But can unhappy teams produce happy devices, or devices that transmit joy or a positive experience to their users? I don't know. I don't have the empirical evidence yet, but I'm guessing, maybe not. So if we were to accept the premise that team happiness was input into effective and positive device design, how would we measure it? Well, the good news is there's actually, software and products available today to be able to track biometrically happiness or less stress or positive indicators of, good feelings inside. And here's some examples on the screen. And apologies for the screen. Let me see if I can just fit that to full screen. Okay. Not sure that's any better or worse. But, there's all these biometric measures of, heart rate, sleep, activity, respiration, body mass, BMI, blood glucose, all these sort of things, which we can get like, constant measurements through time. And, there's a lot of more sophisticated devices, which is very effective, like measuring brain waves, for example. We can do that. That equipment is available and within, affordable reach of, if not individuals, all individuals, definitely within reach of corporations. There's AI tracking tools for mood and engagement. So, for example, in Zoom, you've got these tools where you can track it and do it. And, one of the things that's actually my interest is gene expression. So, genes are not necessarily going to determine our health outcomes, but it's more the epigenetics, the proteins that these genes produce. And epigenetics are based on environment, and you could put emotions and feelings between the environments and the gene expression. And, that's ultimately what we want to be able to influence. So, happy people produce, happy genes, right? Happy gene expression. They produce more of the good stuff, which keeps us feeling good, keeps our body healthy, keeps us in balance. So, the availability of data to biometrically measure happiness, well-being, etc., is all out there. We just need the tools and the platform to be able to integrate that all. And so how will that work in practice? So really, there's two things you need to be able to track. You need to be able to track the biometric data, and from that biometric data, identify events, either, wow, these people were really happy, right? oh my goodness, like, we had a meeting or we had an event or something, and this person or all these people were really unhappy or highly stressed. So we've got to identify significant biometric events. And then we need to also be tracking real world events. So, what was the person doing? Were they walking down the hallway? Were they on a Zoom call? Were they programming? Did they get a phone call? These sort of things. And we need to try and look at the biometric event, correlate it with a real world event, and then do a bit of analysis. And very simple flowchart here. So we identify the event. The first thing we've got to ask, is it a team issue or a personal issue? Maybe the employee is, maybe just have one spike with one employee and they were just having a bad day. Maybe something happened at home in their personal life which caused that, and we should rule that out from the team processes. But maybe there's a Zoom call and we have a meeting, like a daily stand-up, and over 5 days we have these very negative exceptional events, and we go, okay, something's going on here. And maybe there's one person in the meeting who's very happy, but there's 5 people who are very happy. So we say, okay, that's probably a team event, team issue. So we have identified the event. We have to analyze the event. So maybe we review the recording of the Zoom call, we interview people, we see what else is going on, and we try and identify a theory of what went wrong, and identify if there's areas of improvement. Okay, well, what can we do here? Maybe there was a corporate decision made that you just have to do it that way. And a very silly example is, they tell the developers you have to code in Word, for example. It's a bit silly, but it's almost on the edge of believability, given some other things I've seen. And maybe the development team is just, you're kidding me, right? There's no way we can do it, but it's done. They don't have input, so you get this very low satisfaction. And you go, well, how do we improve it, right? And you go talk to everyone and work out that, well, Word is not the best tool, so we need to use Git, for example. Or, it's a very stupid example, I know, but, there's a whole bunch of, probably 100 micro examples we could identify within any development team, which incrementally would add up to big savings. And there's a book called Atomic Habits, which talks about this, which says that you actually get, by stacking wins, these micro wins over time, you actually can get significant team improvements. So, here we're just looking at identifying where are these wins. And then we have to cycle it back through our design and development plan and look at the processes, the tools, the training, look at the culture. And, one of the things we may want to do, if you look at this, is in our design and development plans, look at the biometric measurements or the happiness or the positivity measurements in our teams that we want to achieve, right, and how we do it. So everything I'm talking about here could be embedded in a design and development plan. So I've spoken to a few people, and interestingly enough, I've had some positive feedback, and I think we're actually very much in early stages of kicking this off. We've got our back-end developer, our front-end developer, another experienced medical device developer, and we're actually going to kick this off. And this is the next feedback. So the first question is from the industry, do they think that this is useful? Do other people in medical device development see the opportunity to be able to improve device performance and get the benefits from that through looking at improving team performance, and not just the metrics of output or efficiency, but in terms of the well-being of the teams. And so that's one point. So please tell me what you think. Send me a message if you want to talk. Let me know. I'm very happy to speak to anyone. The second one is to do a literature review and identify how we measure well-being in the workplace, or just generally in the workplace. What are the biometric measurements we need, the objective measures, and also what are the subjective measures like feedback, survey, tracking data that users can determine on themselves. What technology exists to track this? And you've seen some examples here. And I've already identified some gadgets devices, some companies that are already providing solutions for this. And interestingly, I've been working on my own IVD product for the last few years, which we could actually pivot very quickly to configure it for this sort of work. So yeah, we're looking at that technology. Methodology, I think, is very important, especially in cultural settings, because the the human resources department is not the personnel department anymore, right? It's the human resources department. So you're a human, but you're a resource for the company. And to do this, it has to be done to respect the individual. The intervention itself cannot detract from users' happiness or increase their stress. And obviously, if you're tracking these levels of personal data, it can induce fear on how it's going to be used. If I'm not happy enough, am I going to get fired? We get a little bit into 1984 space. So the methodology of the intervention is very, very important here, to respect the individuals, but also do it in a way so we get true data that's really going to improve individuals' well-being, happiness, team performance. And, if you think about it, ultimately you want people looking forward to coming to work, highly engaged, and tackling the tough stuff with a level of positivity and really kicking goals and resolving problems. There are some legal issues we need to work through, data privacy, employment law, these sort of things. So that's pretty important. But, these are issues that are faced by corporations every day, and especially in medical devices, clinical trials, all this sort of medical personal data. There's a lot of skill out there that exists. So, maybe a bit of money and a bit of time, but, not the most difficult thing to do. And then, assuming we get that far, I think for me would be interesting is, who wants to go first, right? Who would like to try this and be willing to do a little bit of a mini trial, get it off the ground with the development team? Wear your Garmin monitor, maybe wear your ECG helmet, have your facial expression tracked on AI in your Zoom meetings, etc. And actually, do a bit of a control study to see if we can actually identify meaningful events, do meaningful interventions, and actually track biometric improvements in teams. And if we can empirically measure improvements in the products somehow. I've got some ideas about that. Also, if you're a professional and you'd be interested to get involved, reach out to me. I already do have a medical device software professional group, which is, pretty traditional to support professionals to improve their practice and just give them some support. And, in addition to my own sort of personal transformation over the last 6 or 7 months, one thing that I found with the group, which was a little bit unexpected, is that, we do focus on technical issues, on practice, on how to implement these sort of things. But, one of the feedback I've got is people just enjoy turning up to the meetings. They know they're not alone. They know they're facing the same issues as other people. And we get to laugh a little bit at the difficulties or the absurdities or whatever. And, we do have meaningful feedback for our users because, sometimes people really struggle finding answers. They come. And we've had examples where in 5 or 10 minutes, they get the answer, say, oh, that's great. Thanks so much. I know what to do. And we can just unblock them, right? So I think we're going to pivot that a little bit as well and see if people want to track the biometrics in that group and, see if we can improve the quality of interactions, the quality of outcomes, the well-being in that group, and see if we can correlate it to outcomes, into what we're trying to achieve with this medical device software professionals group, and if they can bring that into their projects. So, that could be an interesting one to look at as well. So if you'd like to get involved, let me know. And then finally, if we get that far, launch our, what you could say is a happiness company. and get out there, try and do some projects, get an app on the App Store, all these sort of things. And again, we've probably got two markets: one directly to medical device software professionals, and secondly, there's an idea for just a general app for general users. And we won't be alone in that space. But interestingly, when you do come from a medical device software background, or just any general medical device software development, especially where there's data involved, I think we should be the ones to lead in this space, because we have the processes in place. We've got, love it or hate it. I mean, I'm a big fan of 82304, 62304, 14971, 13485. Once you really get past the handcuffs or the constraints, and you actually work out the benefit, these are actually really wonderful standards that we can use to our benefit. And when you work with people in unregulated industry, they do not have the benefit of these standards to live by. They have some agile there, which is good, can be good, but it's a little bit incomplete. So why shouldn't we as medical device developers win in the unregulated space by using our regulated process? So that's the interesting one. So that's pretty much it. It's kind of a concept I'm throwing out there, and for me personally, I think this is something I'd really like to dedicate, at least a few years to see if we get it off the ground. And as I said, it's a little bit personal. I've really felt my life transform, my quality of life transform over the last 7 months. And I'm experiencing a level of contentness I've never experienced before in my life. And I've done some personal practices to achieve that, which this is not a self-development workshop, but I will say, if anybody's struggling with anything, or God forbid you've had some suicidal thoughts or depression, I really struggled with that when I was younger and overcome it. I overcame that probably 20 years ago, but I never achieved the quality of life that I think I'm experiencing now, and I'm just a beginner. Maybe it gets better. Please reach out to me. I'm very, very happy to talk to you, give you some tips or whatever, or at least tell you my experience. You don't have to be alone. And if you'd like to get involved here, then please, reach out, because, I think we need good professionals to help our teams be happy, produce better devices for our patients. And again, not just deliver the clinical benefits, but, maybe think about, can we deliver positive emotional benefits? So with that, that's it. There is a little bit of a delay on the streams. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stay online. We do have one comment here, which I'm going to read while we wait. But if you do have any other questions or comments, please drop them into the LinkedIn chat or on the YouTube chat, and I'll just check them out now. But we have a comment here. Good point. In improving process and products, we often forget people. Fully agree. And happy teams does result in better working conditions, directly affecting product quality. Thank you, Michelle. Putting an emotional connection to your product or user interface also gives you added marketing benefit. Fully agree. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, sounds like we're aligned. So if you want to get involved, let me know. So I think that's it. We've got no other comments. Small group today. But I really want to thank you for spending the time here. We've just gone the 30 minutes. So I'm going to wrap up. But again, thank you very much for your attendance. I wish you a happy and joyful day. And let's talk if you'd love to get involved. Wish you a great afternoon.